Looks like we might be live. Hello, everybody. Surprise live stream. How are you? I hope you can hear me okay. I thought I'd go ahead and do this video as a live stream. I really haven't prepared much for it, but I've had some thoughts on this. I've been looking at some of the posts in social media over the last couple of days, and a couple of things have come up that have caught my eye. One of which was a post the other day where somebody said they have a client who was requesting their MC style to be gender non-binary, and they didn't really like that. They kind of saw that as a negative, and a lot of the comments saw it as a negative as well. Oh, well, people need to just not be so offended, and they need to not do that, and I don't like that, and what kind of world are we living in today, and all kinds of that kind of talk. That caught my eye. The other thing that caught my eye was a post that I saw this morning where somebody was asking, is it offensive now to say ladies and gentlemen over the microphone? So I've got some thoughts on this. I thought I'd share them with you. And the chat is open. If you would like to jump in and say something, I will go to the chat in a little bit and I'll get your responses from this. The first thing I will say in regards to the gender non-binary thing, I don't understand it, but there's a lot of things that I don't understand. Just because I don't understand them doesn't mean that I'm angry at them. I'll give you an example. I don't understand how anybody could listen to country music. I don't get it. What is this stuff? It's like watered down soft rock with fiddles and a twangy voice. I don't like it. I don't understand it. And I don't understand how anybody could dig it, but people do, and it doesn't piss me off. You understand what I'm saying? Just because I understand it doesn't mean that I hate it. I don't hate what I don't understand. It's not the kind of person I am. Whatever, man. Whatever you want to do, be you, do you. And I am totally cool with that. So, gender non-binary could have something to do with LGBTQ, or it could just be a simple request. And I think a lot of people get upset about this because they use phrases quite frequently like ladies and gentlemen. It's part of their rhetoric as an MC to say these kind of things. I personally haven't said ladies and gentlemen for probably 30 years on a microphone. And that's not an exaggeration. The reason I don't say it isn't because I ever felt like ladies and gentlemen was offensive to anybody. It's just because it just sounded like a real cheap way to sound like you knew what you were doing on a microphone. You know what I mean? So there's got to be a better way to say these kind of things when you're trying to get people's attention. And there are. Ladies and gentlemen, to me also sounds very insincere because it does sound canned and scripted. If you're trying to connect with an audience, I think a really good way to do it is to be personal with the audience. Talk to them, Don't say the same thing to them that you've said to the last 300 people that you've been in front of as a DJ. Say something different to them. Speak to them. Don't just say the same thing you say to everybody else. Be genuine with what you say and think of things to say other than things like ladies and gentlemen. I think it makes you a better MC, personally. Good day, Mo. Hello, Michael. And lighting, DJ setups, and reviews. It's an interesting name. Hi, how are you? So anyway, yeah, if you are a ladies and gentlemen DJ, you're going to have a real tough time with anybody who wants you to MC in a gender non-binary fashion. But let me take you back to something that I've always done. And the reason I do it is because I've been in a position where I didn't like it. It wasn't offensive to me, mind you. Don't twist my words. I was never offended by this, but it just didn't sound right. And it kind of made me a little uncomfortable. My sister got married when I still lived in California, and that was over 41 years ago. and my sister's still married. And her boyfriend, we referred to them as Cindy and John. That's how Cindy, it was always Cindy and John. There was no reception. This is before we were really talking about wedding receptions. But I remember at the church, the pastor kept saying John and Cindy. And that sounded so strange to me. And my family, my mother commented on that later. Wow, that sounded really weird. John and Cindy didn't sound right. Well, of course, his family referred to them as John and Cindy. But anybody who knew my sister or, was a friend of hers referred to them as Cindy and John, as we did as well. So I never forgot that. And when I started DJing, throughout the evening, whenever I was talking about the couple, let's assume it's man and woman, because it usually is, I would mix it up. When I would first announce them into the room, typically, and I would ask them, always, how do you want to be announced? That's always a big question. I don't assume that I announce them one way or the other. And most of my clients say, well, we want to be Mr. John Smith. Like, okay. I ignore that completely, by the way. And I introduce them as Mr. and Mrs. John and Cindy Smith, because I feel like it's inclusive. I like it. I think her family would appreciate hearing her name in there, even if she doesn't care. And even if nobody would say anything about it, it just, I don't know. For her side of the family or her friends, they might enjoy hearing her name included with that. But throughout the evening, I will mix it up back and forth. I'll refer to them as John and Cindy sometimes, and I will make it a point to refer to them as Cindy and John for her side of the family or her people. So I'm not putting him before her. I mean, whatever your religious convictions are or your religious convictions, I'm talking about personal connections with people. No one's ever said that they appreciate it, but I can't help but to think they do, because I've seen so many DJs who just constantly want to do the him and her, him and her, him and her. Jay Brandon's in the room, and he says, I always switch same-sex couples' names back and forth so as to never make one more important than the other. So John and Bob, and then Bob and John, and so on. Yeah. In fact, Jay and I have talked about this in depth before. It's really difficult. Like, let's say that you're doing a same-sex wedding or union or whatever it is where you live. There are a lot of factors. You got to ask questions. You can't assume anything about a couple. It could be that Bob's last name is Smith and John's last name is Davison. And maybe they're just going to be Bob Smith and John Davison, and that's not going to change. Or maybe Bob's taking John's name or John's taking Bob's name. Yeah, it could be the case. And if it is the case, let's say that it's going to be John and Bob Davison. They're both going to be Davisons. Bob's taking John's name in this case. So how do you introduce them? Please welcome the newlyweds, John and Bob Davison. And then later on, you can go Bob and John Davison if you want to. You can switch it up however you'd like. So it just depends. Or maybe they're keeping the name. So please welcome our newlyweds, Bob and John. Done. You don't have to get into detail about the last names and things. It's the same way with your traditional men and women couples, where, maybe she's keeping her last name. My daughters got married a couple years ago, same year, which was weird. And one of my daughters took her husband's name. She also kept her name as a middle name. That's another story. But my other daughter just completely kept her name, didn't change anything. So how do you introduce a couple like that, where she doesn't change her name at all? She keeps her name for professional reasons. A lot of people might do this. It's pretty common. Maybe they want to just be introduced with his last name, but really legally it's not, and it's nobody's business. Or maybe it's a big deal to her and she wants everyone to know, or she doesn't want anyone to think that she's taken his name. And you simply just do Paul and Jeanette. You know, please welcome Paul and our newlyweds, Paul and Jeanette. You can simply do that, and I think it's just fine. But yeah, I mean, it's not that tough to take the gender specific stuff out of your MC rhetoric. I hate to use that word. It sounds negative, but it kind of is when you say the same thing every time you go out to an event over and over and over again. It's like you're doing the same event over and over again. You're not having really any original thoughts when it comes to emceeing an event. You're just filling in the blanks of names. I think it's a lot more interesting when you're speaking from the heart and you're really thinking about who's in front of you. You're talking to them and you're not using these canned phrases like ladies and gentlemen so much. I think it's much more interesting that way. You just got to think. Just got to think it out. Picking music is a big deal. Programming is a big deal. Of course, the way you run your business is a big deal, but I think the MC part does get overlooked sometimes. Some people are just really comfortable with just doing it one way, and they've been doing it the same way for 20, 30, 40 years, and they don't want to change it. I think that might be worth looking at. I mean, if you have some kind of personal issue with this kind of stuff and you don't want to take these events, fine, don't. That's your business. That's your thing. I'm not criticizing you one way or the other. But if you are going to take these kind of events and you are going to kind of roll with it, you got to respect it and maybe thinking of it as more of a custom wedding than a fill in the blank wedding might help. We talk about that a lot with music. So have you done the same wedding 300 times or do you do different wedding 300 times? You've done 300 weddings, the same wedding 300 times, right? Same thing with emceeing. If you're emceeing them all the same, that's kind of the same thing too when you think about it. You haven't changed anything. You're just filling in different names. Go to the comments. Jay, once again, I had a Latin wedding where the groom took the bride's last name and legally changed his first name to a very Anglo name. The families were thrilled, and I only refer to them as the bride and groom. Yeah, everything's different. You just got to look at the situation and figure out how to do it. Just say, ladies and gentlemen, there are only two genders. Well, Keystone, I hope everything's going well in Appalachia for you. And say hello to Joe Bob and Billy for me. I miss them. I haven't seen them in a long time. Just say, everyone, good evening, everyone, or hello, everyone. It's time for cake, etc. I'm with you on that. Okay, so I'm going to tell a story. Jay's going to love this. Jay's going to love this because he's going to call it and he's going to get giddy over there. There was a time, a long, long time ago, where I knew that I was going to be face to face with Prince. And this is when Prince was the artist formerly known as Prince. And I'd heard people talking about meeting him before and how we talked in riddles and how you really had to be careful about how you approached him. And you couldn't call him Prince because he wasn't going by that name. And I thought, wow, man, this is really tough. What if I can't say his name? How am I going to approach him and talk to him? I could never figure it out. So when I finally did end up face to face with the guy, I just smiled and nodded, and he smiled and nodded, and that was it. But I look back on that, and it was really simple. All I had to do was say hello or hi. I didn't have to say his name. I mean, that's a pretty open-ended question. Hello, you say hello back, or they say whatever they say to you. It was really easy, but I couldn't think of it for a long time. I couldn't get my head around what to say to this guy. That was the easiest thing I could have said to him, I think. Let's see what else we got. Some of your videos are useful for my office as well. The description of cost breakdown and job pricing translates to other businesses very nicely. Well, you're welcome, Joseph. And you know what? It's one of those things where a lot of the stuff that I talk about isn't stuff that I've made up. It's just kind of stuff that I've been taught and I've discovered, and I just pass it on and share it. A lot of the stuff that some of the DJs who write books, do DVDs, have seminars. A lot of it's just repackaged business stuff but they've put it into terms for DJs. It's not like they came up with this stuff themselves. They just took a concept that was for car sales or that was for basket weaving or that was for managing a drugstore and changed the language into DJ and presented as such. So I would never present any of this stuff as my original thought because none of it is when it comes to that kind of stuff, but it is stuff that I have picked up, doing different things, working different jobs and things that people have taught me. And I, just trying to help everybody and pass along what I can, try to word stuff in a way that I think, maybe somebody might understand better than the typical rhetoric. I try to put a slightly different spin on things, and I'm really glad that it's helpful for you. So thank you for that. I have a cousin in the cake decorating business. She has the same problems. Yeah. It's a group effort. You can use anything from any career into the DJ world. Yeah, you can. You absolutely can. There's so many things that I've done in my life, so many jobs that I've had, or just experiences that I've had that I incorporate into what I do. And, the bummer about this quarantine thing, which isn't so bad now you can't leave the house, but really, I would get the best inspiration for videos and for just presentation and such just by leaving the house, going out and experiencing life and just, making observations about stupid things. I would get the absolute best ideas from just seeing somebody walking their dog or, watching somebody, get a coffee or whatever. That kind of stuff to me, just stupid stuff like that, what was I found very inspiring. And I think that the more I can do that kind of stuff, the better. There are times when I'm just completely creatively burnt out. I don't know what to do a video on. I'm looking at this. I'm like, wow, it's been 3 days. I haven't said a word. I've got nothing to say. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just block it out of my head. I'll leave the house. I'll go do something else. Maybe productive, maybe for recreational purposes, for whatever reason. And it'll come to me. It'll like be right there. It's like, oh yeah, that I can take that and I can apply it to DJing somehow. It's cool that way. The one big thing I hate about the DJ world is upfront pricing. Why are hiding it so much? You don't go to a car dealership with no prices on the cars. Yeah. Everybody's got their own style of doing things, and that is completely up to whoever's selling their services, however they want to do it. Typically, whenever anybody asks me about price, I will say, look, it starts here and it goes up from there depending on what your needs and wants are. So I give them like a base. I think sometimes the reason some DJs keep their pricing off of their website initially is if someone's just kind of shopping online for a DJ and the kid down the street said they could DJ their wedding for $50, yet they're looking at your pricing on your website and it says $1,400. That can be off-putting, especially if they haven't been educated yet. So I feel like not putting the pricing on the website sometimes will help at least start a conversation with someone. They could simply send you an email and say, hey, we're shopping for a DJ. What are your prices? And you can dance around that if you want to. But I do believe that if you say, hey, like I start here, it just goes up from there depending on what your needs and wants are. Let's talk. And then they could come back and say, wow, that's a lot more than we thought. I think we're going to have to go a different direction. And you can come back and say, hey, do whatever you got to do. Just so you know, I'm insured. I'm a professional, happy to help out with whatever you want to do. And if I can be of service, please let me know. So, I don't know. Everybody's got their own style of doing things. Sales is something that I hate doing. I hate it. I'm not bad at sales. I just don't like doing it. I'd rather just DJ and have fun. The sales part's kind of a pain in the butt. How many businesses do you know that you can think of off the top of your head where there's one person who does everything? They are the product. They market the product. They sell the product. They maintain the product. They do everything about it. They do all the books. They do everything. There aren't many businesses like that. The sole proprietorship stuff is tough. It's really tough. It's probably easier if you're a plumber, maybe that's a little easier. This is a little tougher because we are the product, our style of doing things and the way we MC an event and the music that we play, we are the talent. Plumbers are talented too, but at the end of the day, you just want your toilet to flush, and as long as it flushes, you're happy. It's a little different with DJing. It's an art. You're selling art. You're like an art dealer. It's weird. I don't know. I'm just riffing, by the way. If anybody's tuning in here, in Poland is always Mr., Mrs., and Mr. The woman is more important. That way is polite. Yeah, I like that. That is very nice. I have no problem with that. And the thing with me is, just if you didn't know, I don't really care what you want to be called. I don't care how you want to be identified. Just tell me. Just tell me, and I will gladly do it. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to tell you, no, we have to do it this way or that way. I really don't care. But what I don't do is get in the habit of just identifying people in a certain way. And again, it's just courtesy. It's just a courtesy thing. And I've always tried to exercise it. I'll do another couple questions here. I use the term party people often. Yeah, I've heard a lot of DJs will say, hey, hello, party people. Who does that a lot? Jose Heredia. What's up, party people? That's his big thing. Let's see what else. I have a cousin. Oh, I read that one already. Let's see. Our favorite couple, Mr. and Mrs., are newlyweds, Tina and William. The new last name only and more. All right. So yeah, guys, just a live stream today. Not here to set the world on fire. Just here to turn the camera on and say a few things. I really didn't want to do a dedicated video to this, but I wanted to express a couple things and share some ideas. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Be sure, if you can, please like the video and leave a kind comment in the comment section if you can later. And I really do appreciate your subscriptions as well. I do appreciate you. It's all free. I'm not going to ask for your merch money or your Patreon money or any of that. Just, I humbly ask if you could just like and comment and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. It helps feed my family. Please help feed us. Going to get Sarah McLachlan to do a commercial for us pretty soon with sad piano music behind it. So you like and subscribe to my videos. Take care, guys. Practice and enjoy.